There's that word again, autumnal. It's autumnal here in the great city of Manchester. It's wet, it's a bit windy, it's a bit grim, but it is Sunday morning, the 16th of September 2018. How's your weekend been? Have you had a good one? Are you having a good one? Well, thanks for joining me. It's 11 o'clock right now. That's live. That's BST British Summertime as we do Sunday View. My name is Richie Allen. Going to take a quick look through the front pages of the newspapers, the UK tabloids and broadsheets. There are interesting stories inside those papers today as well. And we'll be looking at the Sunday morning flagship television political discussion shows. Sophie Ridge on Sky, Andrew Marr on the BBC. I've been a busy old boy today. Thanks for joining me. I know I said that already. Tweet me right now. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. That's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter.
Asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv.
Always good to hear from you, so do tweet me with opinions on the subjects being discussed today on your Sunday View. Let's do it then.
It's the Richie Allen Show, broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yeah, it's been a nice weekend. Had a lovely afternoon out with the future Mrs. Allen yesterday, celebrating the 4th anniversary of the Richie Allen Show, which was yesterday, September 15th. Made a little video about that, which is on youtube.com. If you haven't seen it, you might want to have a look at it. You might not. It's there anyway, should you want to look at it. Right. All right. Enough of that. Move on. Lovely. Right. Before we have a look at the papers, a couple of things caught my eye. Not so much of a big deal in terms of not getting massive coverage. I will, before I get onto that, say that I want to talk today a little bit about the extreme weather in the United States and elsewhere, Philippines and China. And I've got some interesting audio for you to mull over a little bit later on. So I'm going to talk about extreme weather a little bit later on. But before I look at the front pages of the newspapers, the broadsheets and tabloids in the UK today, this story got my attention. It's inside the Sun on Sunday. I know. Listen, if you're listening in Liverpool, fear not. I've never bought the Sun. Haven't bought it since Hillsborough. That's the gospel truth, by the way. And I never will. But you can read it for free online. And there is an interesting story in there today. This might make you laugh. It might make you groan. It might make you angry if you are a user of the UK's train companies. Passengers on a train with no toilet. How do you have a train with no toilet? But anyway, they were told they could get off the train and use the facilities at a station. And this happened on an Arriva Trains Wales service from Haverfordwest to Cardiff. And the announcement was made presumably by the driver. Or maybe the driver doesn't make the announcements anymore. I don't know. Maybe it's somebody else on the train. The announcement was made. There's no toilet. And when we stop at a certain station, you can jump out and go and make wee-wee or whatever you need to do. You can see where this is going. Loads of passengers got off and the train left the station and left them behind. Right. It was a 2.5 hour journey. If you're getting Haverfordwest to Cardiff, it's 2.5 hours. That's above average in terms of time you'd expect to spend on a train. And they got on and they were told that none of the toilets on the train were working. We'll stop at Carmarthen. If you need to use the loo, jump out, we'll wait for you, and then we'll move on when you're back. They didn't wait. They left the platform before they could get back on. That, dear listener, is privatisation for you right there. And that is why everything that was ever given by bent, filthy, dirty, rotten bastard politicians over the last few decades, everything that was sold on the cheap to private interests should be taken back into public ownership. There's a reason why the toilets don't work. There's a reason why most of the time the boiler is broken and you can't get tea or coffee. And that reason is because when they are extracting as much as they extract from your wallet and your purse and your handbag, charging you fortunes to drive the trains, most of that money is going into the hands of shareholders. It is not going into the upkeep and the maintenance of the trains that you have no choice but to use every day. What a Mickey Mouse operation that is. No toilets, fuck you, we'll stop at Carmarthen, you can go and make wee-wee, and we'll just drive off without you. Wonderful. What a world we live in. And don't tell me, by the way, Richie, you're always bitching about Corbyn. Corbyn will take them back. No, he won't. It'll never happen. Watch. Mark my words, if and when this guy leads the next government, none of that will happen that he has promised if he gets elected. Anyway, 5.5 minutes past 11. Let's start with the Sunday Observer. The Sunday Observer headline is "Give Britain a New Referendum on Brexit," says Sadiq Khan. Don't panic. Don't panic. I'm going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes on Brexit now, and then we're going to get away from it altogether, and we're going to get into more human interesty type things. Don't panic. It's the Observer's headline, "Give Britain a New Referendum on Brexit," says Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. He says, he's writing in the paper, so he's written in the paper. The country only had two options post-Brexit, a bad deal or no deal. He said he never expected to call for a second referendum, but the threat to living standards and jobs is so darn high that there is no alternative. Now, Sadiq Khan did speak with Andrew Marr on the Marr Show this AM, and Marr, of course, asked him, "Well, Sadiq, my old chum, why the flip-flop?" And this is what Khan said.
Well, I've thought long and hard about this. I spent the last 2 years and 3 months working with the government to get the best deal from the European Union. I've met with the Brexit Secretary, David Davis, many, many times, the Prime Minister and others. I've given to the government, City Hall, advice and information. I've been to Brussels to meet with various EU presidents, officials, politicians, to explain to them how an extreme hard Brexit is bad for them too. And the reality is this, Andrew. We've now reached a position where there are two outcomes as a consequence of the government's negotiations. A bad deal, and by that I include us leaving the EU without knowing the terms of the future relationship, sort of blindfold Brexit, or no deal. And independent research undertaken for us shows that no deal would lead to 500,000 fewer jobs, 87,000 fewer jobs in London alone, and £50 billion less investment in our country. That's bad for our country, hugely damaging to London and our country.
So you're against Brexit, and that is familiar, but on the idea of a second referendum, you have changed your mind quite dramatically.
This is really important. I'm not one of those advocating for a rerun. I'm not a referendum guy. What I'm saying is, for the first time ever,
we need a second referendum.
The British public should have a say on the outcome of the negotiations, including what the Prime Minister negotiates with the EU, plus the option of staying in the EU.
Let's just remind ourselves what you said after the first referendum on LBC.
Let's hear what he had to tell ABC straight after the referendum result in June 2016. What did Khan say then?
On LBC.
I think the problem for those of us who are saying to the British public there should be a second referendum, it will lead to even more cynicism. It will lead to the British public saying, hold on a sec, these were the rules of the game, we voted in record numbers, and now you're ignoring us. And I've got grievances about the way the campaign was conducted, but the reality is, Julian, the British public had a say. They voted, and they voted to leave, and my job as the Mayor of London is to heal some of the rifts that were created during the campaign and make sure our city carries on being the greatest city in the world. And I've done that. So one of the things I could have done over the last 2 years and 3 months is cross my arms and watch it all fail and say, I told you so. I've met David Davis 8 times. Met the Prime Minister, the Chancellor.
But you said then, no going back. It would create cynicism and create rifts. What's changed? And
it's really important that this is not a rerun of the referendum, but the British public having a say for the first time on the outcome.
But it is a second referendum.
Well,
that's what it is.
Yeah, but
Sadiq Khan is not autonomous. No elected politician, no Mayor of London, no government minister or Secretary of State or even shadow minister or shadow Secretary of State is autonomous. Easy for you to say, Richie. They are not operating under their own steam. They don't make decisions based on their own feelings and their own ideas. They are puppets glove puppets. You can't see it. It's metaphorical, but there is an arm up Khan's arse operating his mouth. He's been told to now call for a second referendum, a referendum on the deal. That's how it works. Now, Khan's Labour Party colleague Barry Gardner, who is the Shadow International Trade Secretary, was asked for his opinion on Khan's flip-flop by Sky News' Sophie Ridge. So Barry Gardner, Shadow Secretary of State for International Trade, was asked by Sophie Ridge, what about your pal Sadiq Khan and his flip-flop? This is Gardner.
Actually, to have a second referendum would be to throw this government a lifeline. Here we have a Prime Minister who is facing going to Parliament with whatever she eventually manages to conclude with the European Union and find that it is not possible to get it through the British Parliament. Well, in those circumstances, I think the right thing to do is to say, if this government cannot do what it is supposed to and govern, then we need actually to change the government. Calling for a second referendum is really giving her a lifeline, because then she can say, oh, well, if I can't get it through Parliament, I'll go back to the people. But what does she go back to the people on? Because this is not just a two-way question. You know, is it whatever she's managed to negotiate or no deal and we crash out? Or is it whatever she's managed to negotiate and we stay in the European Union? So it's not clear. Whoever writes the question manipulates the answer that they want to get. And of course, it will be this government that is writing the question. The first referendum.
This is very interesting now for people that are interested in this issue. And you should be, because it is a massive issue. It is the biggest issue facing the peoples of Europe in 2018 and for the next 10, 15, 20 years. National sovereignty. Listen to the language being used here. Gardner says the first referendum. They're using a lot of language, a lot of common language. Not only Remainers, but also people that are supposed to be in favour of Brexit. And it's a language that's supposed to kind of permeate your and my subconscious. The first referendum, he said. The first. Now listen to how he talks about the first referendum and what happened during and after the first referendum.
Caused real division in our...
So the first referendum, he says, caused real division in our society. Again, this is almost neuro-linguistic programming. The first referendum caused real division in our society, said Gardner. Well, a referendum is a vote. It's a census taken of the people to garner from the people what it is they want to do. And 52% of the people said they wanted to leave. So it doesn't matter if the 48% who didn't win the day on the 23rd of June 2016, it doesn't matter if they're pissed off and they're saying there are divisions. It doesn't matter. But again, this is NLP. This is subconscious programming, and it is a type of linguistics that isn't very sophisticated, but is very effective. In the first referendum, it caused real division, said Barry Fuckwit Gardner. Well, obviously the 48% are pissed off. But you know what? Suck it up. Move on. You lost. Get over it. Listen to what he says next.
I think the challenge now is actually to try and heal society.
No, the challenge isn't to heal society, dickhead. The challenge is to deliver what the people voted for on June 23rd, 2016. That's what the challenge is. Not to heal society. Oh, well, you know, the people who lost are a bit pissed off, so they've got to get something out of this. No, they fucking don't. When you're in a casino and you're playing the roulette and it falls on 22 and you put your money on 23, the croupier doesn't go, yeah, I can see you're a bit pissed off there. I'll tell you what, I'll give you back 30% of your stake. Doesn't work like that. You lost. Get over it.
It's to take note of what was originally said by the British people in...
Right, let's take note of what was originally said by the British people, and then let's marry that with those people that are pissed off. Let's take note of what the people said in June 2016. Well, they clearly said, let's leave this tyrannical, fascist, horrendous Darth Vader-like super state, this empire, which has destroyed Southern Europe, rendered people homeless, rendered countries broken, impoverished, while every asset from all of those countries has been given to the Rothschild-controlled European Central Bank. Let's get the fuck out of that system, is what people said in June 2016. Clearly, right?
In that referendum, but to do so in such a way that is protecting jobs.
Yeah, piss off. What he says next is interesting.
Let's try and address the fundamental issue here, okay? Because the fundamental issue is, do we want a society that is united and says, okay, I haven't got everything that I want. We've got two groups in society. One that are ardently wanting to leave everything to do with the European Union, whether it's customs union, whether it's single market, whether it's Eurosat, whether it's, you know, the European emissions trading scheme. They just want out.
And they won the referendum. They voted. 52% of them won the referendum. So there's no longer two groups in society. The people who voted to stay in don't matter anymore. When it comes to delivering Brexit, they don't matter anymore. Of course, as human beings, they matter just as much as you and me. Of course. But they lost. Do we have to keep saying it?
Another group that say no. What we want is, we're prepared to leave the European Union, but actually we don't want to leave all those other things which give real benefits to our society.
Tough shit, Paddy.
Can I just bring you back to what would happen?
We've got to try and unite the country, not increase the division.
Nonsense. So he goes on about uniting the country and all of this, and he's not against the second referendum and all the rest of it. And that's the way it is. The final Brexit reporting we'll do today on the programme. Just got to mention that Theresa May, the Prime Minister, has been talking to Nick Robinson, BBC political editor. There's a Panorama programme airing tomorrow evening. It's an extended interview with May. Here's a little snippet. Robinson asks May about the plot to oust her by the Brexiteers. So Robinson says, a lot of your backbenchers, the very, very strong Brexiteers, those who want to leave immediately, they want to get rid of you. What do you say to that? This is May's response.
This is where I get a little bit irritated. This debate is not about my future. This debate is about the future of the people of the UK and the future of the United Kingdom. That's what I'm focused on, and that's what I think we should all be focused on. It's ensuring that we get that good deal from the European Union, which is good for people in the UK, wherever they live in the UK.
There was then her reaction to this man, the former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, and specifically his remarks last weekend, in which he said her Brexit plan was akin to wrapping a suicide vest around the country. Just look at the cold contempt with which she reacts to that.
Well, first of all, I have to say I think that choice of language was completely inappropriate. I've been Home Secretary, was Home Secretary for 6 years and was Prime Minister for 2 years now. I think using language like that was not right, and it's not language I would have used.
And what was signed off here at her country retreat in July, she insists, has to be implemented, not least for Northern Ireland.
The only proposal that's been put forward that delivers on them not having that hard border and ensures that we don't carve up the United Kingdom is the Chequers plan.
And yet, plenty in Parliament, including on her own side, think her ideas are a dud.
That's Chris Mason there for the BBC reporting on the Nick Robinson interview with May, which goes out tomorrow. The Agenda 21, Agenda 30 authors and the financiers that control every single aspect of every facet of our lives will never allow the European Union to dismantle. They will never allow it to break up, and they will never allow the United Kingdom to leave it, no matter what. It's as simple as that. Even if you get some nonsense next year like we are out, but we are maintaining a customs union, we're out, but we're enjoying the benefits of this and that. You're not out. And the Chequers plan, as we've taken apart piece by piece on this programme, is basically staying in the European Union in all but name. Anyway, we're going to leave Brexit there. I know it pisses you off, not all of you, some of you, because you get it non-stop in the papers, you get it on the news shows in the afternoons and in the evenings. Maybe you don't expect to get it here, but it's so important, and you get a different angle here than you get anywhere else. It is exactly 20 minutes past the hour. That means very quick break. When we come back, we're moving away from Brexit. Some very interesting stories. We're going to talk a little bit about forced adoption. We're going to talk about same-sex parenting. We're going to talk about weather modification a little bit later on as well. And we're going to talk about trans women raping women in women prisons. That story we've covered quite a bit, but it's again getting mentions. It's being mentioned, and it is covered in a number of the tabloid newspapers today. So lots of interesting stuff coming up on this edition of Sunday View.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. They become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever. Forever.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today. Welcome back to the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. It's your Richie Allen Show.
Welcome back. Thanks for the tweets that have come in so far. Hi to Terminal 4U, who tweets, Richie, the simple question on Brexit is, do you believe in the illusion of democracy we have been sold from birth, or should we behave even in a manner that defies that belief to the detriment of society? Thanks for that tweet. I appreciate it. Moinga tweets, we are 6 months away from the March Brexit date. The old mantra of second referendum is catching on like a common cold. Yes, good morning to These Are the Damned as well. To Sean McDonald, who said the Brexit vote BS is highlighting that elections have never been planned to work throughout history, in my opinion. Good morning to John Nichols. Thanks for the meme, John. I appreciate that. Good morning to Susan as well. Good morning to Diane in the Republic of Ireland. How you doing, Diane? Cork, Kerry area. Dan, we've got to get Diane on the programme, actually. Very interesting woman. I've invited her on. And I've not followed up on that, but I will do that. Listening live, says Diane. Brexit, just get on with it for God's sake, says Diane. But of course they won't get on with it. Hi to Martin in Spain. Good morning to Natalie. Good morning, Natalie, who says that she's got her bestie Danny earwigging into this week. He will be converted, says Natalie. Danny, if you're listening, welcome to the programme. Nice to know you are listening. Good morning to Base Ninja. And wherever you happen to be in the world listening this morning, I'm thrilled that you've joined me. Thank you so much. Right, let's move on. Brexit is in the past on this programme. Don't worry about it. Right, the Sunday Times, because we're looking at the papers. That was the Sunday Observer. We spent a lot of time on one headline. The Sunday Times, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on this as well. Ruth Davidson, I never want to be PM. That is the Sunday Times headline. Ruth Davidson, I never want to be PM. Who is she? Well, she's the Scottish Conservative Party leader. And there is a picture of her on the Sunday Times today. Heavily pregnant. She's heavily pregnant. She's about to drop a baby. Is Ruth Davidson. Now, in the interview with the Sunday Times, she apparently speaks very candidly about self-harming and of having suicidal thoughts in the past. Speaking frankly about her teenage years, Davidson said that her mental health suffered after a boy from her village took his own life when she was 17 years old. she went into a total tailspin, she told the Sunday Times. She said she started cutting herself, punching walls, drinking far, far too much, and becoming belligerent and angry. Keep that in mind now. She was diagnosed with clinical depression a year later, but said the medication meant she had dark, terrible dreams and couldn't tell what was real. Now, this is the leader of the Scottish Conservative Party. This is a woman who has been mooted as a future UK Prime Minister, has talked candidly about suicidal thoughts, cutting herself, punching walls, drinking, and taking medicine that gave her dark, terrible dreams and left her not understanding what was real. This is a big story that is not being discussed as a big story. The vulnerable group minders, the progressives, are all over the internet today saying how wonderful it is that we can all speak so candidly now about cutting ourselves and about harming ourselves and about suicidal thoughts. It's wonderful. Now, don't get me wrong, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not unsympathetic or indifferent to people who go through bad times. I've been through some very bad times myself. This is not me mocking in any way people who are speaking candidly about things that they had to deal with over the years. I'm not getting at that. I'm getting at something completely different, which will be made clear in the next couple of minutes, hopefully. So she was diagnosed with clinical depression. She's talking about that. She said she became so afraid of sleep, she spent a whole term in Edinburgh University living nocturnally. She described the depression as like a smothering black blanket over her head cutting out the sky. Took away my energy, my hope and my life, she said. She combated these issues by exercising regularly, moderating the alcohol intake, going back to church, and she threw away the pills, but said she still lives with fear of going back to that psychological place that she once inhabited. Like I said, people are queuing up today to say how amazing she is and how inspirational. That's okay. You can feel whatever you want to feel, and if that makes somebody who's going through some bad times feel a little bit more, I suppose, if they feel like that it's okay because it happens to other people, that's a good thing. I have no truck with any of that, but this is what I want to get into. So they're queuing up to say that she's inspirational. It's almost like some people are making it aspirational. And this is what I was speaking about with Dr. Stuart Waiton, PhD from Dundee. Create enough vulnerable groups and people will queue up to inhabit those groups. So it's almost like a badge of honour. Yeah, I used to cut myself, I used to self-harm, but I don't anymore. But that's not what I'm really getting at. This is what I'm really getting at. So the Lord Mayor of Sheffield is a man called Majid, and he was speaking alongside the Police Commissioner for Avon and Somerset, a woman called Sue Mount Stevens. And Sheffield Lord Mayor Majid and Avon and Somerset Police Commissioner Sue Mount Stevens were all too happy to lavishly praise Ruth Davidson for speaking out. Have a listen.
Yeah, do you know what it is? Honestly, so refreshing to hear, especially from such a political figure like Ruth Davidson. And I think, if anything, people are looking for that sort of honesty and that vulnerability because it does show that she is human. And I think she may have not even expected to or intended to, but I think as a result of the interview that she has done, she would have gained a whole new fans who actually will be now campaigning for her to run in the leadership election. So I think it's really, really candid and honest, and I think that's exactly what we need to see, that sort of vulnerability within our leadership.
We need to see that sort of vulnerability within our leadership. And I think now, because she's talked about self-harming, suicide, tablets that pretty much drove her to the edge of the medication, that's going to obviously get a lot of people really interested in supporting Ruth Davidson. This is strange stuff, isn't it? Neil Gardner has tweeted that he thinks this story is about the normalisation and the promotion of mental ill health. There's certainly that aspect to it. Big pharmaceutical companies are putting pressure on public figures to come out and talk about it's okay to say that you're mentally ill or that you have been mentally ill in the past because you can get help. And of course, when people do that and they get help, it's ching, 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 ching for the big pharmaceutical companies. There's no doubt about that. But there's something else going on here as well. Very interesting there. So he couldn't wait to say it's a brilliant thing. What about the Police Commissioner Sue Mount-Stevens? What did she say?
Sue Mount-Stevens, how about you? I know you've had a chance to have a look at the story on Ruth Davidson as well. What was your reaction when you read through her comments?
I think apart from the real human pain that she's sharing with us, I think it's leaders like her that we really need, that openness, that transparency, to say that no one is perfect, that we all have our faults. And I think, this is a leader that we desperately need.
Well, we desperately need Ruth Davidson now because she talked about punching walls, being eternally angry, drinking heavily, cutting herself. She's done that. Wonderful. Now she's fit for leadership. It's very strange times. Very strange times. Victimhood as a badge of honour. How brave it is. It's wonderful to see this vulnerability in our politicians. She's heavily pregnant. One of the things that we won't be discussing, because you're not allowed, because it's hate speech, is we won't be discussing the rights and the wrongs of same-sex parenting. That's two daddies or two mommies. I don't agree with same-sex parenting. I never have. I've spoken about it on the programme in the past. I might get reported now to the South Yorkshire, even though I'm in Lancashire, the South Yorkshire Police Force for hate crimes. I've never believed the best place for a child is with two daddies or two mommies. But that's just me. But we're not talking about that because you can't talk about that. So she's very candid. She's very honest. She's about to have a baby. Do you know what I would say to Ruth Davidson, the Richie Allen Show, with no sarcasm? I would say, what you've just done, Ruth, is a very dangerous thing to talk about. The terrible things that you had to put up with and the things that you had to deal with when you were going through your mental health difficulties, when you were at your lowest ebb. Dangerous, I say, Ruth Davidson. Why? Because after all, social services might read your article, Ruth. They might deem your unborn child to be at risk of future emotional harm, and they might come and take your baby away. But who am I kidding here? It's not what you know, it's who you know. Think I'm bullshitting there? Please go to any good search engine online and put in several key words. Mental health, woman, child, separation, baby, adoption. Just put those words in. Look at the articles from The Guardian. Look at the articles from the Daily Mail over the last 10 years where women have had their children taken away from them in the fucking delivery room because those women went through the things that Ruth Davidson described in the Sunday Times today. Those women said, yeah, I've had difficulties over the years. I tried to kill myself when I was in my late teens. I had all sorts of problems. I was sexually abused, but I came through it. Doesn't matter. Because of what you experienced, you might represent a threat to the safety of your child in the future. Not thought crimes, pre-crime, Minority Report. But of course, Ruth Davidson is a multi-millionairess. And she's a Tory. And she's the leader of the Scottish Conservatives. So she shouldn't expect a knock on the door anytime soon. And nor should she, by the way. Not saying she should. Two-tier justice system in this country. If you're scraping by from week to week and you're going to food banks, you're doing everything you can for your child, but in the past you've had psychiatric treatment for a disorder or for depression or whatever, good chance we'll take that baby away from you. It happens to tens of thousands of children and women in this country every year. But Ruth has had very expensive IVF treatment. Her and her partner, a woman called Jen, are a lesbian vulnerable group. It's a vulnerable group now, so she needn't expect any knocks on the door anytime soon. Couldn't not mark that today, that story. The amount of women who've come on this programme who had their children taken for risk of future emotional harm because those women had gone through mental health issues or dealt with mental health problems over the years. if I had £1 for every woman I heard from, let alone interviewed, the programme, well, we'd be in the pink. The Sunday Telegraph. Kremlin's spies in crisis over Skripal. This is kind of interesting. Apparently, British officials, anonymous ones, told the Telegraph newspaper that the Russian secret services are in crisis because of the botched chemical weapons attack in Salisbury. This is nonsense. So the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency service, that agency has been accused of supplying the two men, Bashirov and his pal, to send them over here to kill the Skripals. And apparently, UK intelligence figures have told the Telegraph that the other intelligence agencies in Russia are cheesed off at the Mickey Mouse manner in which this was carried out. And that basically, the two men were sent onto RT as a punishment for leaving behind a trail of evidence in Salisbury. So when we saw these two men last week on RT, apparently it was because they were being punished for dicking up or cocking up the operation to kill the Skripals, which did leave a woman called Dawn Sturgis dead, allegedly. This is a nonsense. The Daily Mail has gone one further, and inside the Mail there's a story that says, wait for this, these hitmen, these GRU hitmen, actually had a drug-fueled night of cannabis and prostitutes at a hotel in East London hours before the Salisbury attack. So professional were these guys, according to the Mail on Sunday, that they got drugged up to the nines on cocaine and cannabis and prostitutes before going to Salisbury the following day. This is a nonsense. Also on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph is the headline, dozens of terrorists freed to walk the streets. No! Really? Well, a convicted terrorist is being released onto the streets of Britain nearly every week, according to new figures published by the government. A snapshot of Home Office figures shows 46 prisoners held for terrorism offences were released between March 2017 and March 2018. And an old guest of the Richie Allen Show gets a mention. The Telegraph says next month, hate preacher Anjam Chowdhury will be one of more than 500 terrorists to be freed in the UK since the September 11 terror attacks in 2001. The Sunday Telegraph can reveal that at least 22 of Anjam Chowdhury's acolytes have been released from prison since 2001, with another 5 to be left out in the next few weeks and months. Anjam Chowdhury was the head of Al-Muhajirun. You might remember it was proscribed by Theresa May, and some of the followers of Anjam and Al-Muhajirun were allegedly the killers of Lee Rigby and a guy called Khurram Butt, who was part of the London Bridge terror cell, apparently. So a lot of people are cheesed off about the imminent release of Anjam Chowdhury. Now, if you've been a long time follower of the Richie Allen Show, the TV shows and all the rest of it, I've interviewed Anjam Chowdhury about 20 times over the years. And I've always believed, and I could never prove it. Obviously, I couldn't prove it. I always believed that Chowdhury was an MI5 spook. MI6, maybe, whatever. I never believed that Chowdhury was real. A solicitor by trade, a university-educated man whom I used to have on programmes where we had very benign, very relaxed conversations where I would basically accuse him of being a member of the intelligence services here in the UK, and that I didn't believe that he himself believed all the things that he wanted, you know, Sharia law to supplant UK law, for Muslims to take over the country. Now, I'm not saying that there are not people who do believe that. I'm not saying that. There are radicalised people who believe that. Of course there are. And that's a bigger story, and we've talked about that as well. But Chowdhury, for me, was always like, he was always, for me, like another guy I used to interview before he got jailed, a guy called Omar Bakri, who I used to interview. He was on TV with John Ronson years ago on Channel 4, and then I began to interview him as well. And I felt that these guys were buffoons. that they didn't really believe it, but they were putting it out there. They were almost like actors. They were being used, puppets. But anyway, Anjom got banged up, as you know. A couple of years ago, he's going to be out now. And this is a real scare story in the Sunday Telegraph. You know, it's a real, ooh, we're in serious trouble here, you know. The terrorists are coming back on the street. We'll see. Sunday Express front page, just very quickly. We want $1 million for bomber. What's that all about? Well, the Sunday Express is saying that jihadists in Libya are asking for money from the British government in order to hand over the brother of the Manchester Arena attacker, who is alleged to be Salman Abedi, whom we've talked a lot about on this programme. His brother Hashem Abedi was captured in Libya by UN-backed government forces. This is bullshit, by the way. They're jihadists. And he was due to be tried for his involvement in the bombing, the alleged involvement. Now, apparently, these militias who control this man want about $1 million or £765,000 to send him back to the UK. Let's set up a GoFundMe page to give to these lunatics to send back this guy. Let's not do that. And the Mail on Sunday front page, very briefly, jihadis hijacked jail Bible classes. Now, a former prison chaplain says that he's living in fear of Muslim gangs in Brixton Prison, South London, because of his Christian faith. This is in the Mail on Sunday. This is Pastor Paul's song, and he claims that a group of inmates stormed a gathering in the prison chapel and began loudly praising the men who killed soldier Lee Rigby. So he says he was saying mass. I love a good mass, me. I love a good mass. He was saying his mass. Oh, mass. He was saying mass, and in burst all these Muslims who started singing songs about the men who killed Lee Rigby. He was removed, was Mr. Song, from his role as prison... Jesus, Richie. He was removed from his role as Brixton prison chaplain in August last year, but he was eventually reinstated. There's a imam there as well in the prison. The Muslim gangs are taking over Brixton Prison, says this guy. Is it true? Might be. I don't know. The Mail on Sunday reporting it today. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, going to talk briefly about trans women. That's men who identify as women getting sent to women prisons or prisons for women and assaulting women in those prisons. Very quick break. This is Sunday View. I see a lot of comments are coming in. I'll try and get to some of those as well.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. They become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever. Forever.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today.
Right, welcome back. We are exactly 16 minutes to the top of the hour. Sunday View, September 16th. My name is Richie Allen. Thanks for joining me. Lots of tweets coming in. Go to twitter.com where it says search Twitter, put Richie Allen Show in, no spaces, all one word, press enter and join in with people whom are tweeting me. This is in the papers again today, as it has been all week. Karen White, the trans woman, man who claims to be a woman effectively, a rapist who was sent to a women's prison where he raped more women. Prisoners who have committed violent offences against women should not be able to transfer to women's prisons. End of fucking story. Right? Right? Whose idea was this? Anyway, this is a big story. Now, the Liberal Democrats, this Mickey Mouse fucking party. Excuse my French. I said I wouldn't swear today. Their conference is taking place this weekend, and the deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats is a woman called Jo Swinson. And Jo Swinson, deputy leader, Lib Dems, was asked about this on the Sophie Ridge programme on Sky News today. Hark and listen.
I know that equality is very important to you as an issue, so I wondered if I get your thoughts on a story that has been dominating quite a lot of the press recently, and that's of the transgender prisoner Karen White, who, born a man, identifies as a woman, was committed for rape, was then moved to a female prison where she then committed sexual assault on some of the other prisoners. Are you confident that there is the right amount of safeguarding in place around some of these issues?
Good question. Sophie Ridge there. She very, very graphically described this scumbag who raped women in his everyday life, then claimed to be a woman, went to a women's prison and raped several more. Is there issues around safeguarding? You bet your fucking life, Sophie, there are issues around safeguarding. So what does the Lib Dem Jo Swinson say?
These issues.
Well, this is often an issue that gets very emotive.
No! Fuck off! Answer the question. It's not an issue that gets very emotive. Women have been raped by a fucker in a dress with a cock and balls, and he's raped them. Let's not get emotive about it. Answer the question, is there an issue around safeguarding?
I mean, I think that, trans women are women and we...
Trans women are not women! A trans woman is a man who thinks he's a woman. And that is not... I'm not going to allow that enter the lexicon in this country and be decreed to be factual. It's not factual. A trans woman is not a woman. And never will be. You know... And I'm on Twitter last week after I interviewed Posey Parker, and I'm looking at people calling for me to be arrested for saying calmly and rationally, now I'm nobody, I'm not important, that a trans woman is not a woman. Never mind the fact that I say a trans woman should be allowed to do whatever he wants to do, or she. In terms of what I mean by that is live how you want to live. Live as a woman if you want. Nobody should have the right to stop you. Nobody should have the right to abuse you, to humiliate you, to insult you, to try and marginalise you. Nobody. But you don't have the right to say, I can use women's changing rooms. I can join this group or that group. I can go to women's prisons. The language of the country must be changed to suit me. No, fuck off is how we deal with that. I'll support your right to live as you want to live, but you're not changing the dictionary. You're not changing the law that makes it a thought crime for me or anybody else to believe that you're not really a woman. Live like one, dress like one, act like one, all you want, but you ain't a woman. Never will be.
And then we need to respect those rights.
What rights? Trans women are women, we need to respect those rights. What rights? Live like a woman if you want. Don't tell me I have to believe it.
And we also need to make sure that cases are looked at on an individual basis. So what...
Swinson is just refusing to answer the question Sophie Ridge asked her. A trans woman went to a women's prison and raped several women. Is there an issue with safeguarding? Swinson, the hysterical, progressive, little bollocks, Liberal Democrat politician, will do everything and anything to avoid answering that question, because the agenda must proceed. It must proceed. It must proceed. Listen to her.
What clearly happened here in terms of risk assessment, there was obviously a failure given what went on to happen, and people were therefore not having the protection that they should have had. But I think too often this debate gets sort of caught up in basically saying, well, then therefore there shouldn't ever be a possibility for trans women to be in a women's prison.
Yes, there should never, ever be any circumstances where a trans woman, a man who thinks he's a woman, goes to a women's prison. It should never happen in a million years. Jo Swinson?
Which I think would be the wrong answer.
Of course you would, you hysterical, progressive little bollocks. Of course you would. It's the wrong answer. It's the wrong answer.
What needs to happen is that these cases do need to be looked at properly, risk assessments carried out, and there was obviously a failure in this case that needs to be further investigated and lessons learned from that so that that is not repeated.
Thank you. Now, you're in Brighton.
Thank you now, says Sophie Rich. Thank you now. Let's move on. I'm not going to challenge a single thing that you said, and I'm not going to insist that you answer the question. Right, we're going to leave that there. We're going to finish with weather modification today. This is big. You know, we've talked a lot about, obviously on this programme, particularly over the years, weather modification. And obviously at the moment, the news programmes are leading with, obviously, the horrendous weather in America, in the United States and in the Philippines and in China. The weather is horrendous there. And, you know, people die and people lose their homes. And when that happens, people always ask, is it natural or is it engineered? Right? Is a natural storm being manipulated to make it stronger? And I came across this over the weekend. Weathermodificationhistory.com is a website that describes itself as the most comprehensive weather control archive. And it's huge. I was browsing it today with hundreds of verified historical facts and papers and evidence that weather modification is real and that it happens. And they've done a brilliant bit of investigation, has weathermodificationhistory.com. And they have found that in the United States, TV weathermen and women often at the end of a broadcast take questions from viewers live. They might do it on Facebook Live or Twitter Live or YouTube Live. And they'll read questions from tweets and answer them. And weather modification often comes up. So these are real TV weathermen and women in America, well known, doing Q&As, different stations now, and they are being asked on the live questionnaire on the live Facebook about weather modification. Listen to their answers.
All right, weather modification history. That is just trouble. And I get to ban someone. Yeah.
He bans somebody. This asshole is asked a question about weather modification and he bans them from the Q&A. He bans them.
Yes, this is great.
Wow.
So we get to ban them. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to ban people. A poor bastard just asks a question about weather modification and he bans them.
For joining us, and we get to ban you. Weather modification
What
history.
a
Don't believe
dickhead.
any of that junk you see. I would just leave them up there. You can just ignore them and get them out of here. I haven't banned someone in a long time. I finally got to pull out the ban button. I mean, I try to keep everybody on, but when you get to weather modification...
Oh, that is so insulting, that. I mean, I've never in my life heard such a fucking insult as that. I'm surprised you didn't shut down the whole thing. Is there such thing as weather modification? You're banned. How dare you?
Oh, that's just trouble.
Oh, it's trouble.
We do need rain. Hey, Casey, do they ever cloud seed in the area? No. That is not a thing.
So let's see, the account is called Weather Modification History. I see your questions. I'm not going to be responding to them, though. I've had dealings with folks who asked the same questions before, and they've been very rude.
They've been rude. How dare they ask questions about weather modification?
And have, taken my responses the wrong way. If you do have legitimate questions, whoever's running that account right now, you can send me a private...
How could a question be illegitimate? If you don't think weather modification is a thing, just say you don't think it's a thing. Don't say the question is illegitimate, you fucking idiot. You make it more obvious that you've got something to hide when you do that, love. Inappropriate questions. Inappropriate questions.
Private message, and I'm happy to discuss with you.
This guy goes even further. This is James Whelan from a Fox affiliate. Listen to him. He loves to take the piss.
Did they ever try to modify the storm? Yeah, that's what those chemtrails are for. They're up there just, checkerboarding everything. And, Weagle's in control of all of that, and he's at home with his 2 joysticks, and he just controls all the weather that goes on.
Funny fucker, isn't he?
That's why he gets paid the big bucks. That's, it's the way it is. Yes, they used to try it. I know that's what you guys always hedge your arguments on.
So this idiot is prepared to even concede that, well, they used to try to modify the weather. WSET. No, he's not. He's a Fox News affiliate. Now listen to this guy. This guy is WSET Weather. It's a station, I think, somewhere in the Midwest in America. TV station. Could be wrong. His name is George Flickinger. And George Flickinger, he's asked in one of these Q&As. He's asked about weather modification. Have a listen to his answer.
Let's see. Weather modification history. George, is our weather modified? Not here. There are some weather modification companies. I know of one in, actually, I'd worked with years ago in North Dakota. They took part in cloud seeding projects out in West Texas. And what they would do is that in areas that were stricken by drought, the local governments would get together and they would hire this company to fly up into small cumulonimbus clouds. They weren't severe storms, and what they would do is that they would release these flares, burn silver iodide, what was commonly used, and the heat and chemical reaction would help to increase the rain output from those clouds. That's something that they started doing decades ago. And so what you would have, instead of all the moisture staying up in the cloud, basically what it does, it's like squeezing out the cloud and it wrings out the moisture, and then that rain would fall down to the ground. And they did that for the local farmers and ranchers when they were in a drought there in the 1990s. So that was... They hired them for a couple of years, and they deemed the project successful out there. That's a good question. Yeah, Michael says, what? That's crazy. Yeah, I actually flew with them on one of the flights, and the results were just about instantaneous. Whenever they would release the flare, it's not a threat to the environment, it's a natural product, but when they would burn off the flares within the storm, it was, just within 30 seconds, the cloud would start producing more rain.
He was up in an airplane and he watched it happen, and he watched within 30 seconds the clouds producing more rain. And he's a weatherman for a television station in the United States. And of course, if it wasn't for researchers like the group I mentioned earlier on and programs like this, you'd never hear sight or sound of that man. Let me just give you weathermodificationhistory.com. He's just let the cat out of the bag. Have those storms been engineered in the United States and elsewhere? I have no idea. It would be ridiculous for me to say yes. It would be ridiculous for me to say no. They can do it. We know they can do it because back in 1977 through 1978, the countries of the world came together to sign a treaty in Geneva saying that they would not try and engineer or modify the weather. They would not try to weaponize weather. Why did they sign that treaty? Well, they signed it because they knew that it was possible to do so. That was Sunday View, live on Fab Radio 2, richieallen.co.uk, Cogent Radio. Download the Cogent Radio app, and triggerwarning.tv. I've enjoyed speaking with you this morning. I will be back with you again tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time. That's 5 p.m. UK time Monday for Monday's Richie Allen Show. In the meantime, whether the weather is good or bad where you are, stay safe, look after yourselves and one another. Speak tomorrow, leaving you with Bob Dylan.